From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Soini Gray. Three police officers in Ecuador have been arrested after a man was shot and killed during clashes at a police checkpoint in the province of Imbabura. The 24-year-old victim was shot in the head during a confrontation between the police and members of the Mascarilla community. The security agents had arrived in the area after a traffic accident was reported, but clashes broke out when members of the community tried to prevent the agents from arresting the people involved in the crash.
We
will determine their responsibility based on the evidence we have. There is evidence which allegedly shows that the bullet was fired from a weapon belonging to security forces.
9 judges of the Constitutional Court in Ecuador have been dismissed. The decision was made by the Transitory Citizens Participation and Social Control Council. The council says the judges were removed because they didn't act independently while appointing court judges in 2012. Many critics, including former President Rafael Correa, said the decision violates the Constitution. In another development in Ecuador, the government is to leave the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, or ALBA. Foreign Minister Jose Valencia says the government wants to maintain its independence. ALBA was founded in 2005 by Cuba and Venezuela as a progressive alternative to the proposed free trade agreement of the Americas. Denise Herrera has more from Quito.
Hello, yes, indeed. The Council for Citizen Participation and Social Control decided to dismiss the 9 justices of the Constitutional Court. The measure was approved by 5 votes. 1 council member, the lawyer Javier Zavala, abstained, and the indigenous leader Luis Maca didn't attend the vote. According to the Transitory Council, there was a conflict of interest that benefited the former government. Several critics said that the council doesn't have the power to dismiss the justice, and also others stress it lacks legitimacy because there was appointed by the president. Also, the Constitution doesn't establish that the Transitory Council have the real power to dismiss this justice. On the other hand, Ecuador has taken another measure, and Ecuador has withdrawn from the Bolivarian Alliance for the People of America, ALBA. Foreign Minister Jose Valencia said that Ecuador has decided to abandon the ALBA immediately because Ecuador wants to be independent of organizations that are trying to impose specific views on Latin America's social and political issues. So that is all we have for now. We will keep you posted with more information as soon as we can. Back to you at the studio.
Relatives of the murdered Honduran activist Bertha Cáceres are requesting that her trial be postponed. They say the public minister hasn't disclosed all of the information regarding the crime. On Friday, the court has to decide on a hearing to present new evidence. Cáceres was killed in March 2016 protesting the construction of a hydroelectric plant. 9 people have been arrested in connection with the murder.
We're asking the public minister to deliver all the information we've been asking for months. Until now, we haven't received it. That's why the hearings have to be postponed.
And indigenous leaders are also denouncing inconsistencies in Cáceres' case.
Just before the trial for the assassination of activist Bertha Cáceres begins, one of her daughters, accompanied by social leaders, said that she has been denied access to information about the details of the investigation of the assassination of her mother.
This process has developed among great irregularities in the investigation managed by the public ministry that has monopolized the investigation and denied malfeasance in the process, but refusing to let us know what theories are being used and the information that supports the investigations. However, we have always unanimously built theories to determine the individual responsibility of each person.
The trial for the death of the human rights defender Berta Cáceres will occur in September, but the public ministry refuses to give information about the development and investigation prior to the confirmation of what evidence will be used against the accused.
People linked to the Honduran army and energy companies are the cause of the manipulation of access to information, which have been denied 36 times in the case. The public ministry has also 4 outstanding judicial orders. The Honduran courts have ordered the dissemination of information, but it has continually been repudiated. Meanwhile, insensible excuses are being communicated.
For human rights organizations in Guatemala, it is worrying that an emblematic case is being handled with irregularities. The activist groups fear that the death of Berta Cáceres will remain in impunity and that the trend of not probing the matters of human rights defenders and indigenous leaders that has been unleashed in the past weeks will be followed.
Then I think that is our concern, the number of human rights defenders. This year we have seen 19 murders. Many of those correspond to people who were part of the indigenous communities defending their territory and natural resources.
Activists say the Berta Cáceres case is not only a symbol of the regional struggles in defense of indigenous territories, but is also recurrent in other areas, such as the assassination of those who defend natural resources and lead resistance movements.
Argentinian police have raided the homes of former President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. They're searching for evidence on a corruption case during her term. The Senate unanimously approved the raids. Fernández de Kirchner is now a senator and voted in favor of the raids herself. She denies any wrongdoing. More than a dozen elite businessmen and former government officials have been arrested so far. Meanwhile, Fernández de Kirchner's supporters have gathered outside her apartment in Buenos Aires. They say she's the victim of political persecution because of her achievements.
She was the only one who gave us rights, who gave us jobs, our children had a school, and above all, we had a future.
She gave bread to the poor, gave work to the poor, continued to give work to workers and retirement to retirees.
On Sunday, Colombians will be voting in an anti-corruption referendum. It is the first popular consultation in the country's history.
People will vote on 7 questions aimed at saying yes to political transformation and no to corruption. Citizens will cast their vote to decide on a series of reforms to boost transparency and toughen corruption sentences. Among them, the most pressing are cutting congressmen and high official wages, assuring jail sentences for corruption cases, barring condemned officials from occupying a public seat again, and revealing politicians' properties and income. Over 4 million signatures were collected before the referendum was approved. Boosted by the Colombian Green Alliance Party, this initiative aims to call all citizens to support the fight against corruption beyond personal ideologies.
Hace un año exactamente entregamos los más de 4 millones de firmas.
4 million citizens have raised their voice to the anti-corruption measures that the Congress has so far rejected. Congressmen don't want to give up their privileges to high wages, to illegally awarded contracts, and to avoid strong punishments for corruption charges. That's why we Colombians are voting for and changing with the referendum.
Vamos a ir a votar el próximo 26 de agosto.
With 84 votes, the Senate approved the referendum. Organizations are campaigning for people to vote yes on all 7 questions. The referendum needs a minimum of 12 million votes to be approved. That is 1/3 of the electoral census. But campaigners actually want 15 million Colombians to vote.
A los millones de colombianos. Por eso tenemos que ir a votar el 26 de agosto.
We all need to say yes in all 7 questions because we are the ones who need to defend our pockets and recover all the money lost because of corruption. Otherwise, politicians will increase taxes and reduce pensions to cover the financial hole.
There is no doubt that this referendum is a historic milestone in this country.
But some have said members of the ruling Democratic Center Party opposed the consultation, although President Iván Duque has asked them to support the referendum.
We need to support some proposals no matter where they come from, when they are useful for the country. For that reason, I've asked my party to support the referendum, and we're going to campaign for it, so all Colombians join the fight against corruption.
However, some members of Duque's party, among them former President and Senator Álvaro Uribe, say the referendum is just populist. Meanwhile, opposition parties are criticizing Duque for what they say is his lack of involvement.
President Duque called all mayors to support the anti-corruption referendum, so we can see if our president is truly on the side of those who fight corruption.
Corruption has traditionally been pointed out as one of the country's main problems. In 2017, Colombia only scored 37 points out of 100, 0 being very corrupt and 100 very transparent. That's according to Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index. It remains below the world's average of 43 points.
We'll take a short break now. More news in a minute.
The Pakistani journalist Tariq Ali examines the mass media influence promoted by imperialism. Get access to the analysis of the socio-economic and political life of the whole South America on our screen and platform in English. A critical place committed to the truth to determine the major events that transform the world today. Mondays, only on Telesur.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.
Thursdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. A 7.1 magnitude earthquake has hit the border between Peru and Brazil. It happened west of the Peruvian city of Imbabura and about northwest of Puerto Maldonado. No victims or major damage have been reported so far. The quake has also been felt in Bolivia and Chile. Different tremors occurred this week in the Pacific area and are raising fears over a massive quake, but scientists argue on whether these quakes are connected. Human rights defenders are asking for a probe into the murder of 72 migrants in Mexico. The massacre occurred in 2010 in the northern state of Tamaulipas. Victims' relatives and human rights organizations are urging for a truth commission to be set up. Ecuadorians, Salvadorians, Hondurans, Brazilians, and Guatemalan citizens were kidnapped and killed in a farm. They were on their way to the U.S. border.
Yes, we want a truth commission. We have already a proposal on how this commission should be formed.
8 years and we are still waiting. We are still waiting for what all the families hope for, justice.
The relatives of the 72 migrants killed in Mexico 8 years ago are demanding answers from the government.
Relatives of Central and South American migrants are seeking justice. They're demanding the truth about their loved ones who were killed or disappeared during their journey north.
En Guatemala no nos hicieron justicia.
We didn't get justice in Guatemala. What the foreign ministry did was cross-examine us because our relatives left the country to go to the US.
Salvadoran Batila Osoria has mourned her son's murder for 7 years. He, like thousands of other youngsters, was chasing the American dream, but he became a victim of Mexican violence. Migrants in the country have become one of the major targets of this violence.
It was nearly 2 years later when a request from the public prosecutor came. I was waiting for the news, but I wasn't ready for being told that my son was found in a hidden grave in San Fernando.
For them, access to justice has become a nightmare. They have difficulty traveling or getting a visa to enter Mexico.
The case has been stuck in a bureaucratic trap between the countries. We have not seen goodwill by the Mexican state to work with the Central American countries.
NGOs denounce what they believe is a lack of sensitivity by Mexican authorities in these kinds of cases. This killing happened 8 years ago on a farm in the municipality of San Fernando, in the state of Tamaulipas. This incident represents a huge problem the country is facing. At least in this case, the bodies of 72 killed migrants were found.
Come. The Mexican state used to say this to Central American migrants. But if you come, you already know what is waiting for you. Graves, mutilations. The Mexican National Institute for Migration is acting in cohesion with criminals, and it's guided by the police and army.
11 people have been arrested for their alleged link to the massacre, but families are seeking answers. They also want the victims' remains identified.
Members of social movements in Argentina are taking to the streets for the second day. They are angry over President Mauricio Macri's economic policies.
Their message is, we must stop the adjustments. Social organizations are demanding for social rights and guarantees after huge economic adjustment policies implemented by President Mauricio Macri.
There is absolute silence on the discussion regarding social budget. We want them to at least repair a small part of the damage made to our neighborhoods, where new popular kitchens are opened each day, where there is no development and where families can even afford one meal.
Around 50 protests have been organized across the country. The protesters blocked different streets and access points in the capital Buenos Aires and also in other cities. The demonstrators are asking for solutions for the most vulnerable sectors of the society, those who are starving because of these financial policies.
We're witnessing the slow death of society. It is unbelievable to see how neighborhoods decay, moving backwards to 30 years ago. We just want to discuss our jobs, but the government won't do it. And each time, more groups join the fight.
Y creemos que es un momento donde poner las barbas en remojo y que cada uno ponga de su parte.
Workers and human rights organizations participated in these protests. They presented a formal letter rejecting the latest progression against social protest and the destructive consequences of the IMF agreements.
The truth is, this is our limit. We can't take it anymore. Our salaries are not enough. We will continue fighting.
Entramos en una situación, digamos, muy compleja en Argentina.
We are living a very difficult situation in Argentina. This model is based on strict repression and persecution against the opposition.
Se sostiene con nada más que con represión, con
Still, the government continues with its brutal monetary reforms. And once again, the people say they won't give up and will keep fighting to defend their rights and dignity.
Students and police have clashed in Chile's capital, Santiago. Students are angry about a youth labor law from the government. Riot police have used a water cannon and tear gas to disperse protesters. The bill is currently being discussed in Parliament. The government says it will boost youth employment, but students argue it strips away basic workers' rights.
We don't want the law because its content will only make the working rights of young people more precarious.
Now to Paraguay, where workers have demonstrated against a bill that could privatize pension funds. The lower house is currently discussing the bill.
Pensioners and workers from different sectors have been demonstrating in Asunción. to reject a bill that they say will seize their retirement funds.
The bill was presented in 2015. It aims to seize our retirement funds, not only in the public sector. The bill also touches on the funds of private companies and municipal funds.
Workers say the government of former President Horacio Cartes presented the bill to control pensioners' funds. But they add, the project seeks to seize thousands of millions of dollars of the contributions.
They want to seize $3.5 billion, which will go to the financial system. It will not be used to invest and generate jobs. It will go to the financial system without any possibility of guarantees. This gives superpowers to the superintendent.
New President Mario Abdo Benitez of the conservative Colorado Party is following the same political and economic line as his predecessor. Social organizations have announced protests.
We know that Cartes plundered the state. If Abdo Benitez follows the same path, it will also run into the same thing as Cartes, which is seeing people in the streets. We are not going to keep quiet.
80% of workers in Paraguay do not have Social Security. 8 out of 10 does not have a pension plan. The government's intention to privatize retirement funds is added to this reality. Union workers say they will continue to protest.
Peru's Congress has suspended Yesenia Ponce for 4 months over a false resume. The congresswoman of the right-wing Fuerza Popular reportedly paid 10,000 soles to the director of a high school she didn't attend. The sanction recommended by the Ethics Committee was supported by 96 votes with 1 against. At least 135 people have been taken to the hospital due to toxic air pollution in Chile. People fell ill in 2 cities of the country. The Interior Ministry has declared a yellow emergency alert in the communities. The National Petroleum Company and the state-owned copper mining company Codelco, both in the area, are denying any connection. The Constitutional Court of Colombia has re-legalized bullfighting. It overturned a 2017 ruling that considered bullfighting as a form of animal abuse. As of May 2019, bullfighting can resume, but only during specific seasons and in places with a proven bullfighting tradition. Time now for the second break of the newscast. We'll be back in a bit.